Let's talk about the textured color work on this section of Professor Fungi. We have got a series of slipped stitches and purls that, when we add in the alternation of some color in there, add up to sort of mottled texture and color that hopefully will help make this look really mushroomy and really lean into the feeling of this gnome. A lot of people are intimidated by color work, but I want to reassure you that you're only ever going to be working with one color per row on this part of the gnome. When you look at the chart, you can see that there's a big arrow here that's telling you that this is the working color. So it's going to tell you which color to use each round as you go on. So that's going to really help you focus on what's going on, because I have got more than one color per round. If we are slipping a stitch from a lighter color up, that's going to bring that lighter color up, and so it's going to appear lighter on your needles. So I'm showing you in this round what it's going to look like on your needles. So you're going to slip one, knit one with the darker yarn. Slip one, knit one with the darker yarn. And there is a reversed version of this chart available to you if you've got a darker background color. So just be aware that you don't have to use the light and dark the way I've got them here. There is a chart that you can print out. And so this is telling you I'm working with the darker color. I'm going to slip the lighter color up, then knit, slip and knit. I'm going to go all the way around with that. There are a couple of main tips I want to give you, and that has to do with any time where we have yarn floating behind. So when we slip stitches or do stranded color work, we end up with sections of the unused color that are going to be floating behind. So in this kind of mosaic type of knitting, when we are working and we're slipping stitches, the working yarn is going to float behind unused. A lot of this chart has us slipping 3 and knitting 1, and it's those slipping 3, knitting 1 where we're most likely to end up with a float that's too short. So let's talk about that and practice that a little bit. So you're going to hold your yarn the way you would normally hold yarn for knitting, because that's really what we're doing. We're doing normal knitting just with some extra slipping built in. So let's say I'm slipping these. Always slip purlwise unless told otherwise. Slipping this way keeps the stitches oriented the same way and doesn't twist them up. So then I'm going to knit 1. And you can see here that if I wasn't stretching these stitches out, if I had them tighter, this float would be much shorter. And if the float is short, that's what causes color work to kind of waver and buckle and go all bumpy. So the way to really ensure that you're not going to have this happen is not to crowd the stitches on the right hand needle. You want to give them breathing room, and when you go to knit the next knit stitch where that float is going to be anchored again, it can be good to just kind of pull the stitches across on the needle, open them up, knit, and then don't tighten up as you go to knit the next stitches. Don't let this float now tighten. You've made space for the float. Don't now accidentally tighten it, because if we pulled on it, it would shorten right now. So give it breathing room, slip the next set of stitches, give them breathing room, and just work your way across like that. Knitting inside out is a really cool way to make sure that those floats stay longer without even having to pay a super lot of attention to it. So let's talk about what that would look like. It sounds, when you're talking about knitting inside out, as though it's going to be complicated. All you're going to do is flip it inside out. And then you are still going to be working, looking at the right side of your work. So you can see here, I can see all the knits, I can see all the purls. It looks exactly like it looks in the chart. It looks exactly like it looked when it was like this. Now it's just like this, and I will show you this, what it looks like on other needle methods. The theory behind knitting inside out is that the outside of a circle is bigger than the inside of a circle. So just by knitting inside out, we're forcing the yarn to travel farther, just naturally, just by how we have our knitting set up. It's especially useful at the corners. A lot of times when we're knitting with more than one color, or where we're alternating colors and doing this sort of thing with floats, the floats sometimes want to like cut the corners, and when we knit inside out, they can't cut the corners. They're forced to go all the way around. And so we're still knitting comfortably. We're not doing anything weird. We're not looking at the back of the work or having to like convert knits into purls or anything like that. It's still the same exact knitting experience. It's just we flipped the knitting inside out. If you are at the very beginning of the work, It can be difficult if you don't have a lot of work built up yet. It can be hard to flip it inside out. It can want to pop back out on you, and you may find it useful to grab something and just kind of pin it so that it's forced to stay and it won't be trying to like pop back out between your needles on you. We've got this now. If you're working on DPNs, what's going to be different is that usually when we're working on DPNs, the triangle or square, whether we've got our stitches on 3, it'll be a triangle. If we've got it spread on 4, it'll be a square. We're always working at the front needle and it's sort of perpendicular to us, nice and flat and like that. But when we work inside out, that's actually going to be the needle that's away from us. And you can see here, because I'm working away from myself, I still see the right side of the work. I'm still looking at that. So I'm still doing the, in this case, let's do a slip 3. And you can see my needle, other needles are in a slightly different place. So I might want to move that back and just sort of change which way they're oriented, the way they would normally be for you on DPNs. So let's say we slip 3 and we knit 1, slip 3, knit 1. You can see I'm still doing the same work. I'm still kind of keeping an eye on that. If you are working on tiny circulars, you will simply push the knitting inside out and be working on the back of the circle there. So it would still look very much like knitting normally does for you. I think that's the main thing I want everyone to take away from this technique, is that you will always still be knitting on the right side. It's going to feel just like knitting. Now, you can see that this just float is a bit too short, so I'm just going to pull it open and give it space. So then slip, 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 knit, open it up, make sure it's got space. This is a technique that tends to crowd the stitches a little bit, I find, for me at least. When I'm knitting on tiny circulars, I do knit with everything kind of pushed right up to the tip. And by pushing everything up to the tip, that's when those floats can get really short. So always just make sure that you're giving things space as you move away before you knit the next stitch. Until you knit the next stitch, you've kind of got time to either accidentally tighten it up too much, or you can still loosen it up. And it's not really until it's locked in that things are permanent. So always just give yourself that little reminder to do that. And then with magic loop or the 2 circular methods, you will have the stitches split 50-50 across the 2 needles, whether they're 1 long needle or 2 shorter circulars. And what you're going to do is you're going to push things inside out. It's often easier if you get it both of the halves of stitches onto the cords. Push it inside out. And then what you will be doing is you'll be working on the back needle. So pull the front needle and let's find our end here. Here's our end coming off this. And so even with magic loop, you see that tendency of, you know, how sometimes the float wants to cut across the corner here. Well, it can't do that because it's going to be forced to go around the outside. So we will slip 3, knit 1, making sure that our float has space to breathe, slip 3, knit 1, and it's going to feel exactly the same. You're still doing magic loop, you're still looking at the right side of the work. It's a really simple technique to just force those floats to be a little wider. It's making the circle work for you instead of against you when we work with the floats to the outside of our circle. I hope that helps. I hope that your Professor Fungi is coming along with some beautiful color work. Those of you who are watching the video and not sure if you can do it, you can do this. It's knitting and slipping stitches and purling. It's nice and easy. And remember, wonkiness is nominess. If you mess up in here, no one's going to be able to tell. It is a pattern made up from my brain just to mimic some of the natural textures and modeling that happens on a mushroom. And if your gnome is slightly different, it's just going to give it extra personality. Go for it, or do what I say in the pattern if you really need a simple knit this week, and just knit all. I hope that you're having a great week. Happy gnoming.